The Concordant version of the Old Testament, copyright 2021 by the Concordant Publishing Concern. The Book of Leviticus, Chapter 1. And he called to Moses, and Yahweh spoke to him from the tent of appointment, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, and you will say to them, When any man among you brings near an approach present to Yahweh, from the domestic beasts, from the herd, or from the flock, shall you bring near your approach present. If his approach present is an ascent offering from the herd, a flawless male is it which he shall bring near. To the opening of the tent of appointment shall he bring it near for acceptance on his behalf before Yahweh. He will support his hand on the head of the ascent offering, so that it will be accepted for him to make a propitiatory shelter over him. Then he will slay the bull calf of the herd before Yahweh, and the sons of Aaron the priests will bring near the blood and sprinkle the blood against the altar round about which is at the opening of the tent of appointment. Then he will flay the ascent offering and piece it into its pieces, while the sons of Aaron the priests put fire on the altar and arrange the wood on the fire. The sons of Aaron the priests will arrange the pieces with the head and the suet over the wood on the fire which is on the altar, while he shall wash its inwards and its shanks in water. Then the priest will cause the whole to fume on the altar. It is an ascent offering, a fire offering, a fragrant odor to Yahweh. If his approach present is from the flock, from the sheep, or from the goats, for an ascent offering, a flawless male is it which he shall bring near. Then he will slay it on the flank of the altar northward before Yahweh. And the sons of Aaron the priests will sprinkle its blood against the altar round about. He will piece it into its pieces with its head and its suet, and the priest will arrange them over the wood on the fire which is on the altar. And he shall wash the inwards and the shanks in water. Then the priest will bring near the whole and cause it to fume on the altar. It is an ascent offering, a fire offering, a fragrant odor to Yahweh. If his approach present to Yahweh is an ascent offering from the flyer, then he will bring near turtle doves or dove squabs as his approach present. The priest will bring it near to the altar and pinch off its head and cause it to fume on the altar. Yet its blood will be wrung out against the sidewall of the altar. Then he will take away its craw with its filthy contents and fling it beside the altar eastward at the place for the greasy ash. He will cleave it at its wings, yet shall not separate it. Then the priest will cause it to fume on the altar over the wood which is on the fire. It is an ascent offering, a fire offering, a fragrant odor to Yahweh. Chapter 2. When a soul brings near a cereal approach present to Yahweh, of flour shall his approach present be, and he will pour oil on it and put frankincense on it. It is an approach present, and he will bring it to the sons of Aaron the priests. He will extract from there his full fistful of its flour and its oil, along with all its frankincense. Then the priest will cause this memorial portion of it to fume on the altar. It is a fire offering, a fragrant odor to Yahweh. Yet the rest from the approach present is for Aaron and for his sons, O Holy of Holies, from the fire offerings of Yahweh. When you bring near an approach present, baked in the stove, it shall be unleavened perforated cakes of flour mingled with oil, or unleavened wafers anointed with oil. If an approach present on a flat pan is your approach present of flour, it shall be unleavened bread mingled with oil. You are to morsel it into morsels, and you will pour oil on it. It is an approach present. If an approach present of the cooking pot is your approach present, of flour with oil shall it be made. When you bring to Yahweh the approach present which is made in any of these ways, bring it near to the priest that he may bring it close to the altar. Then the priest will raise up from the approach present the memorial portion of it, and cause it to fume on the altar. It is a fire offering, a fragrant odor to Yahweh. Yet the rest of the approach present is for Aaron and for his sons, a holy of holies from the fire offerings of Yahweh. No approach present at all which you are bringing near to Yahweh shall be made with leaven, for all yeast and all honey, none of it shall you cause to fume as a fire offering to Yahweh. As an approach present of first fruits shall you bring them near to Yahweh, yet on the altar they shall not ascend for a fragrant odor. All of your approach presents shall you salt with salt, and you shall not cause the salt of the covenant of your Elohim to cease on your approach present. On all of your approach presents shall you bring salt near to Yahweh your Elohim. Yet if you bring near an approach present of first fruits to Yahweh, you shall bring near pollinated ears toasted by fire, groats of the new crop, as the approach present of your firstfruits. When you will put oil on it and place frankincense on it, it is an approach present. The priest will cause the memorial portion of it to fume from its groats and from its oil along with all its frankincense, a fire offering to Yahweh. Chapter 3. If his approach present is a sacrifice of peace offerings, if from the herd he is bringing it near, whether male or female, a flawless one is it which he shall bring near before Yahweh. He will support his hand on the head of his approach present and slay it at the opening of the tent of appointment. And the sons of Aaron, the priests, will sprinkle the blood against the altar round about. Then he will bring near from the sacrifice of peace offerings a fire offering to Yahweh, the fat covering the inwards, and all the fat which is on the inwards, the 2 kidneys, and the fat which is around them at the hips, and the protuberance on the liver, along with the kidneys shall he take it away. Then the sons of Aaron will cause it to fume on the altar, on top of the ascent offering which is over the wood on the fire. It is a fire offering, a fragrant odor to Yahweh. If his approach present for a sacrifice of peace offerings to Yahweh is from the flock, male or female, a flawless one is it which he shall bring near. If it is a sheep he is bringing near as his approach present, then he will bring it near before Yahweh, and support his hand on the head of his approach present, and slay it before the tent of appointment. And the sons of Aaron will sprinkle its blood against the altar round about. Then he will bring near from the sacrifice of peace offerings a fire offering to Yahweh. Its fat, the flawless fat tail, cut off close to the spine, shall he take it away. Also the fat covering the inwards, and all the fat which is on the inwards, the 2 kidneys, and the fat which is around them at the hips, and the protuberance on the liver. Along with the kidneys shall he take it away. Then the priest will cause it to fume on the altar as a bread offering, a fire offering to Yahweh. If his approach present is a goat, then he will bring it near before Yahweh and support his hand on its head and slay it before the tent of appointment. And the sons of Aaron, the priests, will sprinkle its blood against the altar round about. Then he will bring near some of it as his approach present, a fire offering to Yahweh, the fat covering the inwards and all the fat which is on the inwards, the 2 kidneys and the fat which is around them at the hips and the protuberance on the liver. Along with the kidneys shall he take it away. Then the priest will cause them to fume on the altar as a bread offering, a fire offering for a fragrant odor to Yahweh. All the fat shall be for Yahweh. It shall be an Aeonian statute throughout your generations in all your dwellings. Any fat or any blood you shall not eat. Chapter 4. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, saying, When a soul sins inadvertently, departing from any of Yahweh's instructions of what should not be done, yet does one of them, if the anointed priest should sin so as to bring guilt on the people, then he shall bring near for his sin with which he has sinned a flawless bull, calf of the herd, to Yahweh as a sin offering. He will bring the young bull to the opening of the tent of appointment before Yahweh and support his hand on the head of the young bull and slay the young bull before Yahweh. Then the anointed priest who is consecrated will take some of the blood of the young bull and bring it to the tent of appointment. The priest will dip his finger into the blood and spatter some of the blood 7 times before Yahweh, before the curtain of the holy place. And the priest will put some of the blood on the horns of the altar of the incense of spices before Yahweh, which is in the tent of appointment. All the rest of the blood of the young bull shall he pour out at the foundation of the altar of ascent offering, which is at the opening of the tent of appointment. All the fat of the young bull of the sin offering shall he raise up from it, the fat covering the inwards, and all the fat which is on the inwards, the 2 kidneys, and the fat which is around them, at the hips, and the protuberance on the liver. Along with the kidneys shall he take it away, just as it is being raised up from the bull of the peace offerings. Then the priest will cause them to fume on the altar of ascent offering. Yet the hide of the young bull and all its flesh with its head and with its shanks, its inwards and its dung, namely all left of the young bull, will he bring forth outside the camp to a clean place, to the pouring out place of the greasy ash, and he will burn it over the sticks with fire. On the pouring out place of the greasy ash shall it be burned. If the whole congregation of Israel, they should err inadvertently, and the matter is obscured from the eyes of the assembly, and they do something departing from any of Yahweh's instructions of what should not be done, and they realize their guilt when the sin with which they have sinned becomes known, then the assembly will bring near a flawless bull calf of the herd as a sin offering and bring it before the tent of appointment. The elders of the congregation will support their hands on the head of the young bull before Yahweh, and one will slay the young bull before Yahweh. And the anointed priest will bring some of the blood of the young bull to the tent of appointment. The priest will dip his finger into the blood and spatter it 7 times before Yahweh, before the curtain of the holy place. And some of the blood the priest shall put on the horns of the altar of the incense of spices before Yahweh, which is in the tent of appointment. All the rest of the blood shall he pour out at the foundation of the altar of a scent offering, which is at the opening of the tent of appointment. All its fat shall he raise up from it, and he will cause it to fume on the altar. So he will do to the young bull, just as he did to the young bull of the sin offering. Thus shall he do to it. The priest will make a propitiatory shelter over them, and it will be pardoned them. Then he will bring forth the young bull outside the camp and burn it, just as he burned the former young bull. It is the sin offering for the assembly. When a prince sins inadvertently and does something departing from any of the instructions of Yahweh, his Elohim, of what should not be done, and he realizes his guilt when his sin with which he has sinned is made known to him, then he will bring as his approach present a hairy goat, a flawless male. He will support his hand on the head of the hairy goat and slay it in the place where one should slay the ascent offering before Yahweh. It is a sin offering. The priest will take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger and put it on the horns of the altar of ascent offering. The rest of its blood shall he pour out at the foundation of the altar of ascent offering. All its fat shall he cause to fume on the altar like the fat of the peace offerings. Thus the priest will make a propitiatory shelter over him for his sin, and it will be pardoned him. If one soul of the people of the land should sin inadvertently when he does something departing from any of Yahweh's instructions of what should not be done, and he realizes his guilt when his sin with which he has sinned is made known to him, then he will bring as his approach present a hairy goat, a flawless female, for his sin with which he has sinned. He will support his hand on the head of the sin offering and slay the sin offering in the place of the ascent offering. And the priest will take some of the blood of the sin offering with his finger and put it on the horns of the altar of ascent offering. All the rest of its blood shall he pour out at the foundation of the altar. All its fat shall he take away, just as the fat of the sheep is taken away from the peace offerings. Then the priest will cause them to fume on the altar on top of the fire offerings of Yahweh. Thus the priest will make a propitiatory shelter over him for his sin with which he has sinned, and it will be pardoned him. Chapter 5. When a soul sins in that he heard the voice of imprecation, and he was a witness, whether he saw it or knew about it, if he should not profess, then he will bear his depravity. Or when a soul touches any unclean thing, whether the carcass of an unclean animal or the carcass of an unclean domestic beast, or the carcass of an unclean swarmer, even if it is obscured from him, he has become unclean and has incurred guilt. Or when he touches human uncleanness, any of its uncleanness by which he would be unclean, even if it is obscured from him when he himself realizes it, then he is guilty. Or when a soul swears, talking rashly with the lips to do evil or to do good, as to anything of which a human talks rashly in an oath, even if it is obscured from him, when he himself realizes it, then he is guilty as to any one of these. It will come to be when he realizes his guilt as to any one of these instances, then he will confess in what way he has sinned, and he will bring as his guilt offering to Yahweh for his sin with which he has sinned, a female from the flock, a sheep or a hairy goat, as a sin offering. Then the priest will make a propitiatory shelter over him for his sin with which he has sinned, and it will be pardoned him. Should his hand not attain sufficient means for a flockling, then he will bring as his guilt offering, because he has sinned, 2 turtle doves or 2 dove squabs to Yahweh, one as a sin offering and one as an ascent offering. He will bring them to the priest, who will bring near the one for the sin offering first. The priest will pinch off its head toward its nape, yet shall not separate it. He will spatter some of the blood of the sin offering against the side wall of the altar, and the remainder of the blood shall be wrung out at the foundation of the altar. It is a sin offering, and he shall offer the second as an ascent offering, as is the custom. Thus the priest will make a propitiatory shelter over him for his sin with which he has sinned, and it will be pardoned him. should his hand not afford 2 turtle doves or 2 dove squabs, then he will bring as his approach present, because he has sinned, 1/10 of an ephah of flour as a sin offering. He shall not pour oil over it, nor shall he put frankincense on it, for it is a sin offering. He will bring it to the priest, and the priest will extract from it his full fistful as a memorial portion of it, and he will cause it to fume on the altar, on top of the fire offerings for Yahweh. It is a sin offering. Thus the priest will make a propitiatory shelter over him for his sin with which he has sinned in any one of these instances, and it will be pardoned him. And the priest will come to have the rest as in the case of an approach present. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, when a soul offends with an offense and sins inadvertently in any of the holy things of Yahweh, then he will bring as his guilt offering to Yahweh a flawless ram from the flock, by your appraisal in silver shekels, by the shekel of the holy place, as a guilt offering. Whatever he has sinned in any of the holy things he shall repay, and add 1/5 of its value to it, and he will give it to the priest. The priest, he shall make a propitiatory shelter over him with the ram of the guilt offering, and it will be pardoned him. When a soul should sin and does something departing from any of the instructions of Yahweh, of what should not be done even if he does not know it, when he realizes his guilt and bears his depravity, then he will bring a flawless ram from the flock by your appraisal in silver shekels as a guilt offering to the priest. Thus the priest will make a propitiatory shelter over him for his error in which he has erred, even though he himself did not know it, and it will be pardoned him. It is a guilt offering. He was guilty, yea, guilty toward Yahweh. Chapter 6. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, when a soul sins and offends with an offense against Yahweh, and dissimulates against his companion in regard to deposit or pledge of hand or pillage, or he extorts from his companion, or he finds lost property and dissimulates in regard to it, or swears falsely in one or another of all the things which a human might do, sinning by them. When it will come to be that he sins and realizes his guilt, then he will restore the pillage which he pillaged, or the extortion which he extorted, or the deposit which was committed to him, or the lost which he found, or anything about which he swore falsely. He will repay it in its full value and add 1/5 of its value to it. To him whose it is shall he give it on the day of his guilt offering. He shall bring to the priest as his guilt offering to Yahweh a flawless ram from the flock by your appraisal in silver shekels as a guilt offering. Thus the priest will make a propitiatory shelter over him before Yahweh, and it will be pardoned him for one or another of all the things which one might do to become guilty in it. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, instruct Aaron and his sons, saying, this is the law of the ascent offering. It is the ascent offering on account of its glow on the altar all night until the morning. The fire of the altar, it shall be kept glowing on it. And the priest will put on his linen coat, and he shall put on linen breeches over his flesh. He will raise up the greasy ash to which the fire has devoured the ascent offering on the altar, and place it beside the altar. Then he will strip off his garments and put on other garments and bring forth the greasy ash outside the camp to a clean place. Yet the fire on the altar shall be kept glowing on it. It shall not be quenched. The priest will make wood consume on it morning by morning, and arrange the ascent offering on it, and cause the fat portions of the peace offerings to fume on it. The fire, it shall be kept glowing continually on the altar. It shall not be quenched. This is the law of the approach present. The sons of Aaron are to bring it near before Yahweh in view of the altar. Then one will raise up from it his fistful of the flour of the approach present, and of its oil, and all the frankincense which is on the approach present, and cause it to fume on the altar, a fragrant odor, as its memorial portion to Yahweh. And the rest of it Aaron and his sons shall eat. As unleavened bread shall it be eaten in a holy place. In the court of the tent of appointment shall they eat it. It shall not be baked with leaven. As their portion I give it from my fire offerings. It is a holy of holies, like the sin offering and like the guilt offering. Every male among the sons of Aaron, he may eat of it. It is an Aeonian statute throughout your generations. From the fire offerings of Yahweh, all that may touch them is holy. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, this is the approach present of Aaron and his sons, which they shall bring near to Yahweh on the day of his anointing. 1/10 of an ephah of flour as an approach present continually, half of it in the morning and half of it in the evening. On a flat pan with oil shall it be made. Well mixed shall you bring it. baked morsels of the approach present. Shall you bring near a fragrant odor to Yahweh? And the priest anointed in his stead from among his sons, he shall do it. It is an Aeonian statute to Yahweh. Holy shall it be caused to fume. Every approach present of a priest, it shall come to be wholly fumed. It shall not be eaten. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and to his sons, saying, This is the law of the sin offering. In the place where the ascent offering is slain, the sin offering shall be slain before Yahweh. It is a holy of holies. The priest making it a sin offering, he shall eat it. In a holy place shall it be eaten in the court of the tent of appointment. All that may touch its flesh, it is holy. And when some of its blood is spattered on a garment, you shall rinse that on which it is spattered in a holy place. Yet the earthenware vessel in which it is cooked shall be broken. And if it is cooked in a copper vessel, it will be scoured and laved in water. Every male among the priests he shall eat it. It is a holy of holies. Yet any sin offering from which blood is brought into the tent of appointment to make a propitiatory shelter in the holy place, it shall not be eaten. In fire shall it be burned. Chapter 7. This is the law of the guilt offering. It is a holy of holies. In the place where they slay the ascent offering, they shall slay the guilt offering. Its blood shall one sprinkle against the altar round about, and all its fat shall he bring near from it. The fat tail, the fat covering the inwards, and all the fat which is on the inwards, the 2 kidneys and the fat which is around them at the hips and the protuberance on the liver. Along with the kidneys shall he take it away. Then the priest will cause them to fume on the altar, a fire offering to Yahweh. It is a guilt offering. Every male among the priests he shall eat of it. In a holy place shall it be eaten. It is a holy of holies. Like the sin offering, so is the guilt offering. There is one law for them. The priest who makes the propitiatory shelter with it, his shall it become. And the priest who is bringing near a man's ascent offering, the height of the ascent offering which he brings near is for the priest. His shall it become. And every approach present which is baked in a stove, and all that is made in a cooking pot or on a flat pan, is for the priest who is bringing it near. His shall it become. Yet every other approach present, mingled with oil and drain, shall be for all the sons of Aaron, each man as his brother. This is the law of the sacrifice of peace offerings, which one may bring near to Yahweh. If he should bring it near for an acclamation, then along with the acclamation sacrifice he will bring near unleavened perforated cakes, mingled with oil, and unleavened wafers, anointed with oil, and well-mixed perforated cakes of flour mingled with oil. With perforated cakes of leavened bread shall he bring near his approach present, along with the acclamation sacrifice of his peace offerings. And from it he will bring near one of each kind of approach present as a heave offering to Yahweh for the priest who is sprinkling the blood of the peace offerings. His shall it become. As for the flesh of the acclamation sacrifice of his peace offerings, on the day of his approach present shall it be eaten. None of it shall he leave until morning. If his approach present is a vow or a voluntary sacrifice, it shall be eaten on the day of his approach with his sacrifice, and on the morrow the rest of it may be eaten. Yet the rest of the flesh of the sacrifice on the 3rd day shall be burned in fire. If any of the flesh of the sacrifice of his peace offerings should be eaten, yea, eaten, on the 3rd day, the one bringing it near shall not be accepted. It shall not be reckoned to him. Vile shall it become, and the soul eating any of it, he shall bear his depravity. As for flesh which is touching anything unclean, it shall not be eaten. In fire shall it be burned. As for other flesh, everyone clean may eat of the flesh. Yet the soul who eats flesh from the sacrifice of peace offerings, which is to Yahweh while his uncleanness is on him, that soul will be cut off from his kinsman. When a soul touches anything unclean, the uncleanness of a human or an unclean beast or any unclean swarmer, and eats any of the flesh of the sacrifice of peace offerings, which is to Yahweh, then that soul will be cut off from his kinsman. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, saying, You shall not eat any fat from a bull, sheep, or goat. The fat of a carcass and the fat of that torn to pieces may be used for any work. Yet you shall not eat, nay, eat it. When anyone is eating the fat from the beast of which he brings near a fire offering to Yahweh, Then the soul who is eating will be cut off from his kinsman, and no blood at all shall you eat in any of your dwellings, of flyer or of beast. Any soul who eats any blood, that soul will be cut off from his kinsman. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, saying, The one bringing near the sacrifice of his peace offerings to Yahweh, he shall bring his approach present to Yahweh from the sacrifice of his peace offerings. His hands, they shall bring the fire offerings of Yahweh. The fat with the chest, he shall bring it, the chest to wave it as a wave offering before Yahweh. Then the priest will cause the fat to fume on the altar, and the chest will come to be for Aaron and for his sons. The right leg shall you give as a heave offering to the priest from the sacrifices of your peace offerings. The one of the sons of Aaron bringing near the blood of peace offerings, and the fat, he shall come to have the right leg as an assigned share. For the chest of the wave offering and the leg of the heave offering I take from the sons of Israel, from the sacrifices of their peace offerings, and I shall give them to Aaron the priest and to his sons as an Aeonian statute, due from the sons of Israel. This is the anointed right of Aaron and the anointed right of his sons from the fire offerings of Yahweh on the day he brought them near to serve as priests to Yahweh, which Yahweh instructed to give to them on the day he anointed them from the sons of Israel. It is an Aeonian statute throughout their generations. This is the law for the ascent offering, for the cereal approach present, for the sin offering, for the guilt offering, for the consecrations and for the sacrifice of peace offerings, as Yahweh had instructed Moses on Mount Sinai on the day when he gave instructions that the sons of Israel bring near their approach presents to Yahweh in the wilderness of Sinai. Chapter 8. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Take Aaron and his sons with him, and the garments and the anointing oil, and the young bull of the sin offering, and the 2 rams and the tray of unleavened bread, and assemble the whole congregation at the opening of the tent of appointment. Moses did just as Yahweh had instructed him. The congregation was assembled at the opening of the tent of appointment, and Moses said to the congregation, This is the thing which Yahweh has instructed us to do. So Moses brought near Aaron and his sons and washed them with water, put the tunic on him, girded him with the sash, clothed him with the robe, and put the ephod on him. Then he girded him with the designed band of the ephod and invested him with it. He placed the breastplate on him and put the Urim and the Thummim in the breastplate. Then he placed the turban on his head and placed on the turban at the forefront of his face the gold blossom, the holy insignia, just as Yahweh had instructed Moses. Moses took the anointing oil and anointed the tabernacle and all that was in it and hallowed them. Then he spattered some of it against the altar 7 times and anointed the altar and all its furnishings and the laver and its base to hallow them. He poured some of the anointing oil on the head of Aaron and anointed him to hallow him. Then Moses brought near the sons of Aaron and clothed them with tunics and girded them with a sash and bound up for them the caps, just as Yahweh had instructed Moses. He brought close the young bull of the sin offering, and Aaron and his sons supported their hands on the head of the young bull of the sin offering. One slew it, and Moses took the blood and put some of it on the horns of the altar round about with his finger, and he made a sin offering on the altar. And the rest of the blood he poured out at the foundation of the altar, and hallowed it to make a propitiatory shelter over it. Then he took all the fat which was on the inwards, and the protuberance of the liver, and the 2 kidneys, and their fat, and Moses caused it to fume on the altar. The young bull with its hide, its flesh, and its dung one burned in fire outside the camp, just as Yahweh had instructed Moses. He brought near the ram of the ascent offering, and Aaron and his sons supported their hands on the head of the ram. One slew it, and Moses sprinkled the blood against the altar round about. One pieced the ram into its pieces, and Moses caused the head, the pieces, and the suet to fume. One washed the inwards and the shanks in water, and Moses caused the whole ram to fume on the altar. It was an ascent offering for a fragrant odor. It was a fire offering to Yahweh, just as Yahweh had instructed Moses. He brought near the 2nd ram, the ram of consecrations, and Aaron and his sons supported their hands on the head of the ram. One slew it, and Moses took some of its blood and put it on the lobe of Aaron's right ear, on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. And he brought near the sons of Aaron. Moses also put some of the blood on the lobe of their right ear, on the thumb of their right hand, and on the big toe of their right foot. Then Moses sprinkled the rest of the blood against the altar round about. He took the fat tail and all the fat, which was on the inwards, and the protuberance of the liver, and the 2 kidneys, and their fat in the right leg. From the tray of unleavened bread which is before Yahweh, he took 1 unleavened perforated cake, and 1 perforated cake of oil bread, and 1 wafer, and he placed them on the fat portions and on the right leg. He put the whole on the palms of Aaron and on the palms of his sons, and waved them as a wave offering before Yahweh. Then Moses took them off their palms and caused them to fume on the altar on top of the ascent offering. They were consecrations for a fragrant odor. It was a fire offering to Yahweh. Now Moses took the chest and waved it as a wave offering before Yahweh. It was for Moses the assigned share from the ram of consecrations, just as Yahweh had instructed Moses. Moses took some of the anointing oil and some of the blood, which was on the altar, and spattered it on Aaron, on his garments, and on his sons, and on his sons' garments with him. So he hallowed Aaron, his garments, and his sons garments with him. Moses said to Aaron and to his sons, "Cook the flesh at the opening of the tent of appointment, and there you shall eat it in the bread that is in the tray of consecrations, just as I have been instructed, saying, Aaron and his sons, they shall eat it. Now the rest of the flesh and of the bread shall you burn with fire. And from the opening of the tent of appointment you shall not go forth for 7 days until the day, to fulfill the days of your consecrations, because for 7 days shall one consecrate you. Just as one has done in this day, so Yahweh had instructed to do, to make a propitiatory shelter over you. At the opening of the tent of appointment shall you dwell by day and night for 7 days. You will keep this charge of Yahweh, that you may not die, for so have I been instructed." Thus Aaron and his sons did all the things which Yahweh had instructed by means of Moses. Chapter 9. It came to be on the 8th day that Moses called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel. He said to Aaron, "Take for yourself a young bull calf of the herd as a sin offering, and a ram for an ascent offering, both of them flawless, and bring them near before Yahweh. And to the sons of Israel shall you speak, saying, Take a hairy goat as a sin offering, also a calf and a sheep, both of them a year-old and flawless, as an ascent offering, also a bull and a ram for peace offerings to sacrifice before Yahweh, and an approach present mingled with oil, for today Yahweh will appear to you." So they took what Moses had instructed in view of the tent of appointment, and the whole congregation came near and stood before Yahweh. And Moses said, "This is the thing which Yahweh has instructed that you should do, so that the glory of Yahweh may appear to you." Then Moses said to Aaron, "Come near to the altar, offer your sin offering and your ascent offering. Make a propitiatory shelter about you and about the people. Offer the approach present of the people, and make a propitiatory shelter about them, just as Yahweh has instructed." Aaron came near to the altar and slew the calf of the sin offering, which was for himself. When the sons of Aaron brought near the blood to him, he dipped his finger into the blood and put it on the horns of the altar, and the rest of the blood he poured out at the foundation of the altar. The fat and the kidneys and the protuberance of the liver from the sin offering he caused to fume on the altar, just as Yahweh had instructed Moses. The flesh and the hide one burned in fire outside the camp. Then he slew the ascent offering. When the sons of Aaron provided him with the blood, he sprinkled it against the altar round about. For the ascent offering they provided him with its pieces in the head, and he caused them to fume on the altar. He washed the inwards and the shanks, and caused them to fume on top of the ascent offering on the altar. Next he came near with the approach present of the people, and took the hairy goat of the sin offering, which was for the people, slew it, and made it a sin offering like the first. He brought near the ascent offering, and offered it as is the custom. He brought near the approach present, filled his palm from it, and caused it to fume on the altar aside from the ascent offering of the morning. Then he slew the bull and the ram, the sacrifice of peace offerings, which were for the people. When the sons of Aaron provided him with the blood, he sprinkled it against the altar round about. As for the fat portions from the bull and from the ram, the fat tail and the covering fat, the kidneys and the protuberance of the liver, they placed the fat portions on top of the chests, and caused the fat to fume on the altar. The chest and the right leg Aaron waved as a wave offering before Yahweh, just as Yahweh had instructed Moses. Then Aaron lifted up his hands toward the people and blessed them. He descended after he had made the sin offering, the ascent offering, and the peace offerings. Now Moses and Aaron went into the tent of appointment. When they came forth, they blessed the people. Then the glory of Yahweh appeared to all the people. Fire came forth from before Yahweh, and it devoured the ascent offering and the fat portions on the altar. When all the people saw it, they were jubilant and fell on their faces. Chapter 10. The sons of Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu each took his fire pan, put fire in them, placed incense on it, and came near before Yahweh with alien fire such as he had not instructed them. And fire came forth from before Yahweh and devoured them, and they died before Yahweh. Then Moses said to Aaron, "That is what Yahweh spoke of, saying, 'Among those near me shall I be hallowed, and in the presence of all the people shall I be glorified.'" Aaron was still, and Moses called to Mishal and to Elzaphan, sons of Uzziel, uncle of Aaron, and said to them, "Come near, carry your brothers from the presence of the holy place outside the camp." So they came near and carried them in their tunics outside the camp, just as Moses had spoken. Then Moses said to Aaron and to Eleazar and to Ithamar his sons, "Do not dishevel your head's hair, and do not rip your garments, so that you may not die, lest he be wrathful with the whole congregation. Yet your brothers, all the house of Israel, they may lament over the burning which Yahweh has burned. And from the opening of the tent of appointment you shall not come forth lest you die, for the anointing oil of Yahweh is on you." So they did according to the word of Moses. Yahweh spoke to Aaron, saying, "Do not drink wine or intoxicant, you or your sons with you, when you come into the tent of appointment, so that you may not die. It shall be an Aeonian statute throughout your generations, to differentiate between the holy and the profane, and between the unclean and the clean, and to direct the sons of Israel in all the statutes which Yahweh has spoken to them by means of Moses." Moses spoke to Aaron and to Eleazar and to Ithamar, his sons who were left, "Take the approach present, the rest of the fire offerings of Yahweh, and eat it unleavened beside the altar, for it is a holy of holies. You will eat it in a holy place, for it is your dole and your son's dole from the fire offerings of Yahweh. For thus have I been instructed, but the chest of the wave offering and the leg of the heave offering shall you eat in a clean place, you and your sons and your daughters with you. For as your dole and your son's dole are they given from the sacrifices of peace offerings of the sons of Israel. The leg of the heave offering and the chest of the wave offering on the fire offerings of the fat portions shall they bring to wave as a wave offering before Yahweh. And it will become yours and your sons with you as an Aeonian dole, just as Yahweh has given instruction. Now as to the hairy goat of the sin offering, Moses inquired, but behold, it had been burned up. He was wrathful at Eleazar and at Ithamar, the sons of Aaron who were left, saying, "For what reason did you not eat the sin offering in the holy place? For it was a holy of holies, and he gave it to you to bear the depravity of the congregation, to make a propitiatory shelter over them before Yahweh. Behold, its blood was not brought to the holy place inside. You should have eaten it in the holy place, just as I have given instructions." Aaron spoke to Moses, "Behold, today they brought near their sin offering and their ascent offering before Yahweh, yet meeting me are such things as these. And had I eaten the sin offering today, would it be good in the eyes of Yahweh?" When Moses heard this, it was good in his eyes. Chapter 11. Yahweh spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying to them, "Speak to the sons of Israel, saying, These are the animals which you may eat of all the beasts which are on the land. Every one bisecting the hoof and cleaving the cleft of the hooves and bringing up the cud among beasts, you may eat it. Only this is what you may not eat of those bringing up the cud or bisecting the hoof. The camel, for it is bringing up the cud, yet is not bisecting the hoof, it is unclean for you. The coney, for it is bringing up the cud, yet is not bisecting the hoof, it is unclean for you. The hare, for it is bringing up the cud, yet does not bisect the hoof, it is unclean for you. And the boar, for it is bisecting the hoof and is cleaving the cleft of the hoof, yet it is not stirring up the cud, it is unclean for you. Of their flesh you may not eat, and their carcass you may not touch. They are unclean for you. This is what you may eat of all those which are in the waters. All that have fins and scales in the waters, in the seas and in the watercourses, you may eat them. Yet all that have no fins or scales in the waters, in the seas and in the watercourses of every swarmer of the waters, of any living soul which is in the waters, they are an abomination to you. Since they shall come to be an abomination for you, you may not eat of their flesh, and you shall regard their carcass as abominable. All that has no fins or scales in the waters, it is an abomination to you. These you shall regard as abominable among the flyers. They shall not be eaten. They are an abomination. The vulture, the bearded vulture, and the eagle, the black kite and the falcon, all of its kind, every raven, all of its kind, the ostrich, the screech owl, the gull and the hawk, all of its kind, the little owl, the cormorant and the eagle owl, the ibis, the pelican, and the Egyptian vulture, the stork, the heron, all of its kind, the hoopoe and the bat. Every swarmer of the flyers going on all fours, it is an abomination to you. Only this one you may eat of every swarmer of the flyers, the one going on all fours which has shanks above its feet to hop with them on the land. These of them may you eat, the locust, all of its kind, the bald locust, all of its kind, the cricket, all of its kind, and the grasshopper, all of its kind. Yet every other swarmer of the flyers which has 4 feet, it is an abomination to you. Also you are defiling yourselves with these. Anyone touching their carcass, he shall be unclean until the evening. Anyone carrying some of their carcass, he shall rinse his garments, and he will be unclean until the evening. As for every beast which is bisecting the hoof, yet the cleft it is not cleaving, and the cut it is not bringing up, they are unclean to you. Anyone touching them, he shall be unclean. And anything going on its soles among all the animals going on all fours, they are unclean to you. Anyone touching their carcass, he shall be unclean until the evening. And the one carrying their carcass, he shall rinse his garments and will be unclean until the evening. They are unclean to you. This is unclean to you among the swarmers swarming on the land. The weasel, the rodent, and the great lizard, all of its kind, the gecko, the monitor, the lizard, the sand lizard, and the chameleon. These are unclean to you among all the swarmers. Anyone touching them in their death, he shall be unclean until the evening. And anything on which any of them should fall in their death, it shall be unclean. From every article of wood, or garment, or leather, or sackcloth, to every article in which work is done, into water shall it be brought, and it will be unclean until the evening. Then it will be clean. Yet every earthenware vessel into the midst of which any of them should fall, all that is in its midst shall be unclean, and you shall break it. Any food which may otherwise be eaten on which such water should come shall be unclean, and any drink which may otherwise be drunk in any such vessel shall be unclean. Also anything on which some of their carcass should fall, it shall be unclean. A stove or an oven, it shall be broken down. They are unclean, they shall become unclean to you. Only a spring or cistern, a confluence of water, it shall remain clean. Yet whatever is touching their carcass, it shall be unclean. In case anything from their carcass should fall on any sowing seed which was sown, it shall be clean. Yet in case water was put on the seed, and anything from their carcass fell on it, it shall be unclean to you. In case any of the beast which is yours for food dies, the one touching any of its carcass, he shall be unclean until the evening. And the one eating any of its carcass, he shall rinse his garments and will be unclean until the evening. Also the one carrying any of its carcass, he shall rinse his garments and will be unclean until the evening. Any swarmer swarming on the land, it is an abomination. It shall not be eaten. All going on the torso and all going on all fours, even all on many pairs of feet of any swarmer swarming on the land, you may not eat them, for they are an abomination. Do not make your souls abominable with any swarming swarmer, nor shall you defile yourselves with them, or you will be unclean by them. For I, Yahweh, am your Elohim, so you will sanctify yourselves and become holy, for I am holy. Hence you shall not defile your souls with any swarmer moving on the land. For I, Yahweh, am the one bringing you up from the land of Egypt, to be your Elohim. so you will become holy, for I am holy. This is the law about the beast, the flyer, and every living soul moving in the water, and about every soul swarming on the land, to differentiate between the unclean and the clean, between the animal which may be eaten and the animal which may not be eaten. Chapter 12. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, saying, When a woman conceives seed and bears a male, then she will be unclean 7 days. As the days of her menstrual period shall she be unclean. On the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. Then she shall dwell 33 days more in her cleansing blood flows. She shall not touch anything holy, and she shall not come to the sanctuary until the days of her cleansing be full. And if she should bear a female, then she will be unclean 2 weeks, as during her period, and she shall dwell 66 days more in her cleansing blood flows. When the days of her cleansing are full, for a son or for a daughter, she shall bring a year-old he-lamb as an ascent offering, and a dove squab or a turtle dove as a sin offering to the priest at the opening of the tent of appointment. He will bring it near before Yahweh and make a propitiatory shelter over her, and she will be clean from the fountain of her blood flows. This is the law for the one giving birth to a male or to a female. Yet if she should not find her means sufficient for a flockling, then she will take 2 turtle doves or 2 dove squabs, one for an ascent offering and one for a sin offering. The priest will make a propitiatory shelter over her. Then she will be clean. Chapter 13. Yahweh spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, In case a human comes to have in the skin of his flesh a nodule or a scurf or a blotch, and it comes in the skin of his flesh as the contagion of leprous disease, then the matter will be brought before Aaron the priest, or before one of his sons, the priests. When the priest examines the contagious area in the skin of the flesh, and the hair in the contagious area, it has turned white, and the appearance of the contagion is deeper than the skin of his flesh. It is the contagion of leprous disease. When the priest has examined it, he will pronounce him unclean. Yet if the blotch is white, that in the skin of his flesh, and is not deeper in its appearance than the skin, and its hair has not turned white, then the priest will enclose the contagious person 7 days. The priest will examine him on the 7th day, and if in his eyes the contagion has stayed unchanged, the contagion has not diffused in the skin, then the priest will enclose him a second 7 days. The priest will examine him on the second 7th day, and if the contagion is inconspicuous and the contagion has not diffused in the skin, then the priest will pronounce him clean. It is a scurf. He will rinse his garments, then he will be clean. Yet if the scurf should have diffused, yea, diffused in the skin, after his appearance before the priest for his cleansing, then he will show himself a second time to the priest. When the priest has examined, and if the scurf has diffused in the skin, then the priest will pronounce him unclean. It is a leprous disease. In case the contagion of a leprous disease comes to be in a human, then the matter will be brought before the priest. The priest will examine, and if a white nodule is in the skin, and it has turned the hair white, and wild living flesh is alive in the nodule, it is a chronic leprous disease in the skin of his flesh. Then the priest will pronounce him unclean. He shall not enclose him, for he is unclean. Yet if the leprous disease should bud, yea, bud in the skin, so that the leprous disease covers all the skin of the contagious person, from his head unto his feet to all appearances in the eyes of the priest, then the priest will examine, and if the leprous disease covers all his flesh, he will pronounce the contagion clean. All of it has turned white. He is clean. Yet on the day wild living flesh appears in it, he shall be unclean. When the priest has examined the wild living flesh, he will pronounce him unclean. The wild living flesh, it is unclean. It is a leprous disease. Or in case the wild living flesh reverses and is turned to white, then he will come to the priest. The priest will examine him, and if the contagion is turned to white, then the priest will pronounce the contagion clean. He is clean. In case the flesh comes to have a boil in its skin, and it is healed, and there comes in place of the boil a white nodule or a reddish-white blotch, then he will show himself to the priest. The priest will examine, and if its appearance is lower than the skin, and its hair, it has turned white, then the priest will pronounce him unclean. It is the contagion of leprous disease. In the boil has it budded. Yet when the priest examines it, and behold, there is no white hair in it, and it is not lower than the skin, and it is inconspicuous, then the priest will enclose him 7 days. And if it should have diffused, yea, diffused in the skin, then the priest will pronounce him unclean. It is the contagion. Yet if, in its place, the blotch stays unchanged and does not diffuse, it is the puckered scar of the boil, and the priest will pronounce him clean. Or in case the flesh comes to have a fiery scorch in its skin, and the living scorch becomes a reddish white or white blotch, then the priest will examine it, and if the hair in the blotch has turned white and its appearance is deeper than the skin, it is a leprous disease. In the scorch has it budded. The priest will pronounce him unclean. It is the contagion of leprous disease. Yet if the priest examines it, and behold, there is no white hair in the blotch, and it is not lower than the skin, and it is inconspicuous, then the priest will enclose him 7 days. Then the priest will examine him on the 7th day. If it should have diffused, yea, diffused in the skin, then the priest will pronounce him unclean. It is the contagion of leprous disease. Yet if, in its place, the blotch stays and does not diffuse in the skin, and it is inconspicuous, it is a nodule of the scorch. Then the priest will pronounce him clean, for it is the puckered scar of the scorch. In case a man or a woman comes to have the contagion in him on the head or in the beard, then the priest will examine the contagion, and if its appearance is deeper than the skin and yellow, thin hair is on it, then the priest will pronounce him unclean. It is a scall. It is a leprous disease of the head or the beard. Yet when the priest examines the contagion of the scall, and if its appearance is not deeper than the skin, and there is no dusky hair on it, then the priest will enclose the one with the contagion of the scall 7 days. Then the priest will examine the contagion on the 7th day, and if the scall has not diffused, no yellow hair has come to be on it, and the appearance of the scall is not deeper than the skin, then he will shave himself. Yet the scall he shall not shave, and the priest will enclose the one with the scall a second 7 days. Then the priest will examine the scall on the 7th day, and if the scall has not diffused on the skin, and its appearance is not deeper than the skin, then the priest will pronounce him clean. He will rinse his garments and be clean. Yet if the scall should have diffused, yea, diffused on the skin after his cleansing, then the priest will examine him. And if the scall has diffused on the skin, the priest shall make no quest for yellow hair. He is unclean. Yet if in his eyes the scall has stayed unchanged, and dusky hair has sprouted on it, the scall is healed. He is clean, and the priest will pronounce him clean. When a man or a woman comes to have blotches on the skin of their flesh, white blotches, then the priest will examine, and if on the skin of their flesh the blotches are inconspicuous white, it is a blister. It has budded on the skin. He is clean. When a man's head is burnished and he is bald, he is clean. And if his head is burnished from the edge of his face and he has a bald forehead, he is clean. Yet when there comes to be a reddish-white contagion on his bald head, or on his bald forehead, it is a budding leprous disease on his bald head or on his bald forehead. Then the priest will examine him, and if the nodule of the contagion is reddish-white on his bald head or on his bald forehead, like the appearance of a leprous disease of the skin of the flesh, he is a leprous man. He is unclean. The priest shall pronounce him unclean, yea, unclean. His contagion is on his head. As for the leprous man in whom the contagion is, his garments, they shall come to be ripped, and his head it shall come to be disheveled, and he shall muffle the upper lip, and unclean, unclean shall he call. All the days in which the contagion is in him, he shall be unclean. He is unclean, and he shall dwell alone. His dwelling shall be outside the camp. In case a garment comes to have the contagion of a leprous mold in it, in a woolen garment or in a flaxen garment, in the spun yarn or in the woven piece of flax and of wool, in leather or in any leather work, and the contagion becomes greenish or reddish in the garment, or in the leather, or in the spun yarn, or in the woven piece, or in any article of leather, it is the contagion of leprous mold, and it is to be shown to the priest. The priest will examine the contagion and enclose the contagious thing 7 days. Then he will examine the contagion on the 7th day. In case the contagion has diffused in the garment, in the spun yarn or in the woven piece, in leather of any workmanship which is made of leather, the contagion is a festering leprous mold. it is unclean. He will burn the garment, or the spun yarn, or the woven piece, in wool or in flax, or any article of leather, in which the contagion comes to be, for it is a festering leprous mold. In fire shall it be burned. When the priest examines, and behold, the contagion has not diffused in the garment, in the spun yarn, or in the woven piece, or in any article of leather, then the priest will instruct them, and they will rinse that which had the contagion in it, and he will enclose it a second 7 days. Then the priest will examine after the contagion has been rinsed, and if the contagion has not turned its visible appearance, even though the contagion has not diffused, it is unclean. In fire shall you burn it, whether it is pitted in its back or in its front. When the priest examines, and behold, the contagion is inconspicuous after it has been rinsed, he will tear it from the garment, or from the leather, from the spun yarn, or from the woven piece. Yet if it should still appear in the garment, in the spun yarn, or in the woven piece, or in any article of leather, it is budding out. In fire shall you burn it, that which has the contagion in it. As for the garment, the spun yarn, or the woven piece, or any article of leather, which you are rinsing when the contagion withdraws from it, it will be rinsed a second time. Then it will be clean. This is the law of the contagion of leprous mold in a woolen or flaxen garment, the spun yarn, or the woven piece, or any article of leather, for pronouncing it clean or for pronouncing it unclean. Chapter 14. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, This shall come to be the law of the leprous man in the day of his cleansing. When the matter is brought before the priest, then the priest will go forth outside the camp. When the priest examines, and behold, the contagion of leprous disease is healed in the leprous man, then the priest will instruct that they take for the one cleansing himself 2 living clean birds in cedar wood, double-dipped crimson and hyssop. The priest will instruct that they slay 1 bird in an earthenware vessel over live water. Then he shall take the living bird, it in the cedar wood, the double-dipped crimson and the hyssop, and he will dip them and the living bird into the blood of the bird slain over the live water. Then he will spatter it 7 times on the one cleansing himself from the leprous disease, and he will pronounce him clean. He will send the living bird free over the surface of the field. The one cleansing himself will rinse his garments and shave all his hair and wash in water. Then he will be clean. Afterward he may come into the camp, yet he will dwell outside his tent 7 days. Then it will come to be on the 7th day that he shall shave all his hair from his head, his beard and his eyebrows. Even all his hair shall he shave off. When he has rinsed his garments and bathed his flesh in water, then he will be clean. On the 8th day he shall take 2 flawless he-lambs, and 1 flawless ewe-lamb a year old, 3/10 of an ephah of flour, an approach present mingled with oil, and 1 log of oil. The priest pronouncing the man clean will cause the one cleansing himself and these items to stand before Yahweh at the opening of the tent of appointment. Then the priest will take 1 he-lamb and bring it near as a guilt offering with the log of oil, and he will wave them as a wave offering before Yahweh. He will slay the he-lamb in the place where he slays the sin offering and the ascent offering in the holy place. For like the sin offering, the guilt offering, it is for the priest. It is a holy of holies. The priest will take some of the blood of the guilt offering, and the priest will put it on the lobe of the right ear of the one cleansing himself, on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. Then the priest will take some of the log of oil and pour it on the priest's left palm. The priest will dip his right finger into the oil which is on his left palm, and spatter some of the oil with his finger 7 times before Yahweh. Some of the oil which is left on his palm the priest shall put on the lobe of the right ear of the one cleansing himself, on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot, over the blood of the guilt offering. And the rest of the oil which is on the palm of the priest shall he put on the head of the one cleansing himself. Thus the priest will make a propitiatory shelter over him before Yahweh. Then the priest will make the sin offering, and so make a propitiatory shelter over the one cleansing himself from his uncleanness. And afterward he shall slay the ascent offering. The priest will bring up the ascent offering and the approach present on the altar before Yahweh. When the priest makes a propitiatory shelter over him, then he will be clean. If he is poor and his hand cannot afford it, then he will take 1 he-lamb as a guilt offering for a wave offering to make a propitiatory shelter over him, 1/10 of an ephah of flour mingled with oil for an approach present, a log of oil, and 2 turtle doves or 2 dove squabs, whichever his hand can afford. One will come to be a sin offering and the other an ascent offering. He will bring them on the 8th day for his cleansing to the priest at the opening of the tent of appointment before Yahweh. And the priest will take the he-lamb of the guilt offering and the log of oil, and the priest will wave them as a wave offering before Yahweh. Then he will slay the he-lamb of the guilt offering. The priest will take some of the blood of the guilt offering and put it on the lobe of the right ear of the one cleansing himself, on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. Some of the oil the priest shall pour on the priest's left palm, and the priest will spatter with his right finger some of the oil which is on his left palm 7 times before Yahweh. Then the priest will put some of the oil which is on his palm on the lobe of the right ear of the one cleansing himself, on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot on the same place as the blood of the guilt offering. And the rest of the oil which is on the palm of the priest he shall put on the head of the one cleansing himself to make a propitiatory shelter over him before Yahweh. He will offer one of the turtle doves or of the dove squabs from whichever his hand can afford. Of that which his hand can afford, the one is for a sin offering and the other for an ascent offering along with the approach present. Thus the priest will make a propitiatory shelter over the one cleansing himself before Yahweh. This is the law for one in whom is the contagion of leprous disease, whose hand cannot afford more for his cleansing. Yahweh spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, When you come to the land of Canaan, which I am giving to you for a holding, and I put the contagion of leprous mold in a house of the land of your holding, then he to whom the house belongs will come and tell the priest, saying something that appears to me like the contagion is in the house. The priest will instruct that they clear out the house ere the priest comes to examine the contagion, so that all which is in the house shall not be unclean. Afterward the priest shall come to examine the house. He will examine the contagion, and if the contagion in the side walls of the house has greenish or reddish concavities, and their appearance is lower than the sidewall, the priest will go forth from the house to the opening of the house, and he will lock the house 7 days. When the priest returns on the 7th day and examines, and if the contagion has diffused in the sidewalls of the house, then the priest will instruct that they pull off the stones which have the contagion in them and fling them outside the city into an unclean place. They shall also scrape off the house inside round about, and they will pour out the plaster soil which they have scraped off outside the city into an unclean place. Then they will take other stones and insert them instead of the stones, and other soil shall they take and plaster the house. Now if the contagion should return, and it buds in the house after one pulled off the stones, after scraping off the house and after it is plastered, then the priest will come and examine, and if the contagion has diffused in the house, it is a festering leprous mold in the house. It is unclean. Hence they will tear down the house, its stones and its timbers, and all the plaster soil of the house, and will bring them forth outside the city to an unclean place. Anyone entering the house all the days while they locked it shall be unclean until the evening. And anyone lying in the house, he shall rinse his garments. Also, anyone eating in the house, he shall rinse his garments. Yet if the priest should come, and he examines, and if the contagion has not diffused in the house after the house was plastered, then the priest will pronounce the house clean, for the contagion is mended. To expiate the house he will take 2 birds, also cedar wood, double-dipped crimson and hyssop. He will slay 1 bird in an earthenware vessel over live water, and he will take the cedar wood, the hyssop, the double-dipped crimson, and the living bird, and dip them into the blood of the slain bird, and in the live water, and spatter it on the house 7 times. Thus he will expiate the house with the blood of the bird, with the live water, with the living bird, with the cedar wood, with the hyssop, and with the double-dipped crimson. Then he will send the living bird free outside the city over the surface of the field, and make a propitiatory shelter over the house. Then it will be clean. This is the law for every contagion of leprous disease and for the scall, for leprous mold in a garment and on a house, for a nodule, for scurf, and for blotches, to direct about the day of the unclean and about the day of the clean. This is the law of leprous disease. Chapter 15. Yahweh spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, and you will say to them, In case any man should come to be discharging from his flesh, his discharge, it is unclean. This is the law of his uncleanness in his discharge. Whether his flesh oozes his discharge or seals his flesh from his discharge, he is unclean all the days of the discharge of his flesh, or when it seals his flesh from his discharge. It is his uncleanness. Any bedding on which the one discharging has lain is unclean, and every article on which he has sat is unclean. Anyone who touches his bedding, he shall rinse his garments, and he will bathe in water and be unclean until the evening. Also the one sitting on an article on which the one discharging has sat, he shall rinse his garments, and he will bathe in water and be unclean until the evening. And the one touching the flesh of the one discharging, he shall rinse his garments, and he will bathe in water and be unclean until the evening. In case the one discharging should spit on one who is clean, then he will rinse his garments and bathe in water and be unclean until the evening. Every riding seat on which the one discharging should ride is unclean, and anyone touching anything that came to be beneath him, he is unclean until the evening. Also the one carrying them, he shall rinse his garments, and he will bathe in water and be unclean until the evening. Anyone whom the one discharging should touch, without having laved his hands in water, he will rinse his garments and bathe in water and be unclean until the evening. Any article of earthenware which the one discharging has touched, it shall be broken, and every article of wood, it shall be laved in water. When the one discharging is clean from his discharge, he will count off for himself 7 days for his cleansing. And he will rinse his garments and bathe his flesh in live water and be clean. On the 8th day, he shall take for himself 2 turtle doves or 2 dove squabs, and will come before Yahweh to the opening of the tent of appointment, and he will give them to the priest. Then the priest will make of them one a sin offering and the other an ascent offering. Thus the priest will make a propitiatory shelter over him before Yahweh because of his discharge. A man, when an emission of semen comes forth from him, will bathe all his flesh in water and be unclean until the evening. Every garment and all leather on which his emission of semen has come, he will rinse in water, and it will be unclean until the evening. Also, a woman with whom a man is lying with an emission of semen, they will both bathe in water and be unclean until the evening. When a woman comes to be discharging, and her discharge in her flesh be blood, 7 days shall she come to be in her period, and anyone touching her, he shall be unclean until the evening. Everything on which she has lain during her period is unclean, and everything on which she has sat is unclean. Anyone touching her bedding, he shall rinse his garments, and he will bathe in water and be unclean until the evening. And anyone touching any article on which she has sat shall rinse his garments, and he will bathe in water and be unclean until the evening. Whether it was on the bedding or on the article on which she was sitting when he touched it, he is unclean until the evening. If a man should lie, yea, lie with her, and her period should come on him, then he will be unclean 7 days, and any bedding on which he has lain is unclean. In case a woman discharges a discharge of her blood many days, not in the time of her period, or in case she discharges beyond her period, all the days of the discharge of her uncleanness shall she come to be as in the days of her period. She is unclean. Any bedding on which she has lain all the days of her discharge, as the bedding of her period shall it become to her, and any article on which she has sat shall become unclean as during the uncleanness of her period. Anyone touching them, he shall be unclean. He will rinse his garments and bathe in water and be unclean until the evening. When she is clean from her discharge, then she will count off for herself 7 days, and afterwards she is clean. On the 8th day she shall take for herself 2 turtle doves or 2 dove squabs, and she will bring them to the priest to the opening of the tent of appointment. Then the priest will make of the one a sin offering, and of the other an ascent offering. Thus the priest will make a propitiatory shelter over her before Yahweh, because of the discharge of her uncleanness. You will warn the sons of Israel against their uncleanness, so that they may not die in their uncleanness when they defile my tabernacle which is in their midst. This is the law for the one discharging, and from whom is coming forth an emission of semen to be unclean by it. Also for the menstruous one in her period, as well as for the one discharging with his discharge, for the male as for the female, and for the man who is lying with her who is unclean. Chapter 16. Yahweh spoke to Moses after the death of the 2 sons of Aaron when they came near before Yahweh and died. Yahweh said to Moses, Speak to Aaron your brother that he must not come at just any time into the holy place, inside the curtain before the propitiatory shelter which is on the coffer, so that he may not die. For in the cloud shall I appear over the propitiatory shelter. In this way shall Aaron come into the holy place, with a bull calf of the herd as a sin offering, and a ram as an ascent offering. The holy linen tunic shall he put on, and linen breeches, they shall be over his flesh, and with a linen sash shall he gird himself, and with a linen turban shall he be turbaned. They are holy garments. He will bathe his flesh in water and put them on. From the congregation of the sons of Israel shall he take 2 hairy goats as a sin offering, and 1 ram as an ascent offering. Aaron will bring near the young bull of the sin offering, which is for himself, and he will make a propitiatory shelter about himself and about his house. He will take the 2 hairy goats and stand them before Yahweh at the opening of the tent of appointment. Then Aaron will cast lots over the 2 hairy goats, 1 lot for Yahweh and 1 lot for the goat of departure. Aaron will bring near the hairy goat over which the lot for Yahweh comes up and make it a sin offering. Yet the hairy goat over which the lot for the goat of departure comes up, it shall stay alive before Yahweh to make a propitiatory shelter over it, and to send it away as the goat of departure to the wilderness. Aaron will bring near the young bull of the sin offering, which is for him, and he will make a propitiatory shelter about himself and about his house. He will slay the young bull of the sin offering, which is for himself. Then he will take a full fire pan of embers of fire off the altar from before Yahweh, and both his hands full of thin incense spices, and he will bring it inside the curtain. He will put the incense on the fire before Yahweh, and the cloud of incense will cover the propitiatory shelter which is on the testimony, so that he may not die. He will take some of the blood of the young bull and spatter it with his finger on the face of the propitiatory shelter eastward. And before the propitiatory shelter shall he spatter some of the blood 7 times with his finger. He will slay the hairy goat of the sin offering, which is for the people, and bring its blood inside the curtain, and do with its blood just as he did with the blood of the young bull, and spatter it on the propitiatory shelter and before the propitiatory shelter. Thus he will make a propitiatory shelter over the holy place because of the uncleannesses of the sons of Israel, and because of their transgressions for all their sins. So shall he do for the tent of appointment that is tabernacling with them in the midst of their uncleannesses. No human at all shall come to be in the tent of appointment when he enters to make a propitiatory shelter in the holy place until his coming forth. He will make a propitiatory shelter about himself and about his household and about the whole assembly of Israel. Then he will come forth to the altar which is before Yahweh and make a propitiatory shelter over it. He will take some of the blood of the young bull and some of the blood of the hairy goat, and he will put it on the horns of the altar round about. He will spatter some of the blood on it with his finger 7 times, and cleanse it and hallow it from the uncleannesses of the sons of Israel. When he has finished making a propitiatory shelter for the holy place in the tent of appointment and the altar, he will bring near the live hairy goat. Aaron will support his 2 hands on the head of the live hairy goat, confess over it all the depravities of the sons of Israel, and all their transgressions and all their sins, and he will put them on the head of the hairy goat, and send it away by the hand of a ready man to the wilderness. Thus the hairy goat will bear on it all their depravities to an inaccessible land, and he will send the hairy goat free into the wilderness. Then Aaron will enter the tent of appointment and strip off the linen garments which he put on when he came into the holy place, and he will leave them there. He will bathe his flesh in water in a holy place, put on his garments, go forth, and he will make his ascent offering and the ascent offering of the people, and thus make a propitiatory shelter about himself and about the people. The fat of the sin offering shall he cause to fume on the altar. The one sending the hairy goat free as the goat of departure, he shall rinse his garments, and he will bathe his flesh in water, and afterward he may come into the camp. As for the young bull of the sin offering and the hairy goat of the sin offering, whose blood was brought to make a propitiatory shelter in the holy place, one shall bring them forth outside the camp, and they will burn in fire their hides and their flesh and their dung. The one burning them shall rinse his garments, and he will bathe his flesh in water, and afterward he may come into the camp. It will come to be for you as an Aeonian statute. In the 7th month, on the 10th of the month, you shall humble your souls, and no work at all shall you do, the native or the sojourner, sojourning in your midst. For on this day shall one make a propitiatory shelter over you to cleanse you from all your sins. Before Yahweh shall you be clean. It is a Sabbath of cessation for you, and you will humble your souls. It is an Aeonian statute. The priest whom one is anointing and whom one is consecrating to serve as priest instead of his father will make a propitiatory shelter. He will put on the linen garments, the holy garments, and he will make a propitiatory shelter over the holy sanctuary. Over the tent of appointment and the altar shall he make a propitiatory shelter. Over the priests and over all the people of the assembly shall he make a propitiatory shelter. This will come to be for you as an Aeonian statute to make a propitiatory shelter over the sons of Israel because of all their sins once a year. And he did just as Yahweh had instructed Moses. Chapter 17. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and to his sons and to all the sons of Israel, and you will say to them, This is the thing which Yahweh has instructed, saying, Any man from the house of Israel who slays a bull or a sheep or a goat in the camp, or who slays it outside the camp, and does not bring it to the opening of the tent of appointment, so as to bring it near as an approach present to Yahweh before the tabernacle of Yahweh, bloodshed shall be accounted to that man. He has shed blood. Hence that man will be cut off from among his people. This is in order that the sons of Israel may bring their sacrifices, which they have been sacrificing, on the surface of the field, that they bring them before Yahweh to the priest at the opening of the tent of appointment, and sacrifice them as sacrifices of peace offerings to Yahweh. Then the priest will sprinkle the blood against the altar of Yahweh at the opening of the tent of appointment, and he will cause the fat to fume as a fragrant odor to Yahweh. No longer shall they sacrifice their sacrifices to hairy goat demons, after whom they have been prostituting. An Aeonian statute shall this become for them throughout their generations. To them you shall say, Any man from the house of Israel or from the sojourner who sojourns in your midst, who should offer an assent offering or a sacrifice, and not bring it to the opening of the tent of appointment to offer it to Yahweh, that man will be cut off from his kinsmen. As for any man from the house of Israel and from the sojourner sojourning in your midst who should eat any blood, I will set my face against the soul eating blood, and I will cut him off from among his people, for the soul of the flesh, it is in the blood. And I myself have assigned it to you to make a propitiatory shelter over your souls on the altar. For the blood, because of the soul, it makes a propitiatory shelter. Therefore I say to the sons of Israel, No soul at all of you shall eat blood, nor shall the sojourner sojourning in your midst eat blood. Any man from the sons of Israel and from the sojourner sojourning in your midst who hunts a game animal or a flyer which may be eaten, he will pour out its blood and cover it with soil, for the soul of all flesh is its blood, as its soul is it. So I said to the sons of Israel, The blood of any flesh you shall not eat, for the soul of all flesh, it is its blood. Anyone eating it, he shall be cut off. Any soul who eats a carcass or an animal torn to pieces, whether a native or a sojourner, he will rinse his garments and bathe in water, and he will be unclean until the evening. Then he will be clean. Yet if he should not rinse his garments and not bathe his flesh, then he will bear his depravity. Chapter 18. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, and you will say to them, I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. According to the deeds of the land of Egypt in which you dwelt, you shall not behave. And according to the deeds of the land of Canaan where I am bringing you, you shall not behave. And by their statutes you shall not walk. My ordinances shall you keep, and my statutes shall you observe to walk by them. I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. You will observe my statutes and my ordinances, for the human who does them will also live by them. I am Yahweh. Not any one of you shall come near any kin of his flesh to expose their nakedness. I am Yahweh. The nakedness of your father and the nakedness of your mother you shall not expose. She is your mother. You shall not expose her nakedness. The nakedness of your father's wife you shall not expose. It is the nakedness of your father, the nakedness of your sister, the daughter of your father or the daughter of your mother, begotten at home or begotten outside. You shall not expose their nakedness. The nakedness of your son's daughter or your daughter's daughter. You shall not expose their nakedness, for they are your nakedness. The nakedness of your father's wife's daughter, begotten by your father, you shall not expose. She is your sister. You shall not expose her nakedness. The nakedness of your father's sister you shall not expose, for she is kin of your father. The nakedness of your mother's sister you shall not expose, for she is the kin of your mother. The nakedness of your father's brother you shall not expose. That is, to his wife you shall not approach. She is your aunt. The nakedness of your daughter-in-law you shall not expose. She is the wife of your son. You shall not expose her nakedness. The nakedness of your brother's wife you shall not expose. She is the nakedness of your brother. The nakedness of both a woman and her daughter you shall not expose. Her son's daughter and her daughter's daughter you shall not take to expose her nakedness. They are kin. This is lewdness. And you shall not take a woman to be a rival to her sister by exposing her nakedness to her in her lifetime. To a woman in the period of her uncleanness, you shall not approach to expose her nakedness. And to the wife of your companion you shall not give your emission of semen to be unclean with her. You shall not give any of your seed to make them pass through fire to Moloch, for you shall not profane the name of your Elohim. I am Yahweh. With a male you shall not lie as bedding with a woman. This is an abhorrence. You shall not give your emission to any beast to be unclean with it. And a woman shall not stand before a beast to copulate with it. This is decadence. Do not defile yourselves in any of these ways. For in all of these the nations which I am dismissing before your face are defiled. Since the land is unclean, I shall visit its depravity on it, and the land shall vomit out its dwellers. As for you, you will observe my statutes and my ordinances, and you shall not do any of these abhorrences, either the native or the sojourner sojourning in your midst. For the men of the land who were before you have done all these abhorrences, and the land is unclean. So that the land shall not vomit you out when you defile it, just as it vomited out the nations which were before you. For anyone who shall do any of these abhorrences, the souls doing them will be cut off from among their people. Hence you will keep my charge by no means to do any of the abhorrent statutes which were practiced before you, so that you may not defile yourselves by them. I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. Chapter 19. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the whole congregation of the sons of Israel, and you will say to them, Holy shall you become, for I am holy, Yahweh your Elohim. Each of you shall fear his mother and his father, and you shall observe my Sabbaths. I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. Do not turn around to the forbidden idols, and molten Elohim you shall not make for yourselves. I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. When you offer a sacrifice of peace offerings to Yahweh, you should sacrifice it for acceptance on your behalf. On the day of your sacrifice shall it be eaten, or on the morrow, and what is left until the third day, in fire shall it be burned. Yet if it be eaten, yea, eaten on the third day, it is vile. It shall not be accepted. Its eater shall bear his depravity, for what is holy to Yahweh has he profaned. Hence that soul will be cut off from his kinsman. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not finish the edges of your field in reaping. In the gleaning of your harvest, you shall not glean. Also your vineyard you shall not glean, and the loose berries of your vineyard you shall not glean. For the humble one and for the sojourner shall you forsake them. I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. You shall not steal, nor dissimulate, nor deal falsely, each one with his companion. And you shall not swear by my name falsely, and so profane the name of your Elohim. I am Yahweh. You shall not extort from your associate, nor shall you pillage. The wage of a hireling shall not lodge with you until morning. You shall not maledict the deaf, and before the blind you shall not put a stumbling block. You will fear your Elohim. I am Yahweh. You shall not do iniquity in judgment. You shall not show partiality to the poor one, nor favorably honor the face of the great one. In righteousness shall you judge your companion. You shall not go about as a defamer among your kinsmen. You shall not stand against the blood of your associate. I am Yahweh. You shall not hate your brother in your heart. You shall admonish, yea, admonish your companion, so that you may not bear sin with him. You shall not avenge, nor shall you be resentful against the sons of your people. You will love your associate as yourself. I am Yahweh. My statutes shall you observe. Your beast you shall not cause to copulate dissimilarly. Your field you shall not sow dissimilarly, and a garment dissimilarly made of linsey woolsey shall not come up on you. In case a man who lies with a woman has an emission of semen when she is a bondmaid designated for another man, yet has not been ransomed, nay ransomed nor freedom given to her, A distinction shall there be. They shall not be put to death, since she was not freed. He will bring his guilt offering to Yahweh at the opening of the tent of appointment, a ram as a guilt offering. Then the priest will make a propitiatory shelter over him with the ram of the guilt offering before Yahweh. For his sin with which he has sinned, and his sin with which he has sinned will be pardoned him. When you shall come into the land, and you plant any tree for food, then you will regard its foreskin as uncircumcised. That is its fruit. For 3 years shall it be as uncircumcised to you. It shall not be eaten. Yet in the 4th year all its fruit shall become holy, as praise offerings to Yahweh. And in the 5th year shall you eat its fruit so as to increase its yield to you still more. I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. You shall not eat on the mountains. You shall not augur nor consult clouds. You shall not round off the edge of your head's hair, nor ruin the edge of your beard. You shall not put a laceration in your flesh for a deceased soul. You shall not put a tattoo writing on yourself. I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. Do not profane your daughter to make her a cult prostitute, that the land may not prostitute itself, and the land be full of lewdness. Instead, my Sabbath shall you observe, and my sanctuary shall you devoutly fear. I am Yahweh. Do not countenance mediums and wizards. Do not seek them out to be defiled by them. I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. In the presence of the gray-haired shall you rise, and you will honor the face of the old. You will fear your Elohim. I am Yahweh. When a sojourner sojourns with you in your land, you shall not tyrannize over him. As a native among you shall the sojourner sojourning with you come to be to you, and you will love him as yourself. For sojourners were you in the land of Egypt. I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. You shall not do iniquity in judgment, in measure, in weight, or in quantity. Just scales, just stone weights, a just ephah, and a just hin shall you come to have. I, Yahweh, am your Elohim, who brought you forth from the land of Egypt. Hence you will observe all my statutes and all my ordinances and do them. I am Yahweh. Chapter 20. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, To the sons of Israel you shall say, Any man of the sons of Israel and of the sojourners sojourning in Israel, who should give any of his seed to Moloch, he shall be put to death, yea, death. The people of the land shall pelt him with stones. I myself shall set my face against that man, and I will cut him off from among his people, for he has given of his seed to Moloch, on account of the defilement of my sanctuary and the profanation of my holy name. And if the people of the land should obscure their eyes from that man when he gives of his seed to Moloch, so as to avoid putting him to death, then I myself will set my face against that man and against his family, and I will cut off from among their people him and all those prostituting after him, to prostitute after Moloch. As for the soul who should countenance mediums and wizards to prostitute after them, I will set my face against that soul also, and I will cut him off from among his people. Hence you will sanctify yourselves and become holy, for I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. You will observe my statutes and keep them. I am Yahweh who is hallowing you. For any man who shall maledict his father or his mother, he shall be put to death, yea, death. It is his father and his mother whom he maledicts. His blood guilt will be on him. As for a man who commits adultery with another man's wife, one who commits adultery with his associate's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall be put to death, yea, death. As for a man who lies with his father's wife, he has exposed his father's nakedness. The two of them shall be put to death, yea, death. Their blood guilt will be on them. And a man who lies with his daughter-in-law, the two of them shall be put to death, yea, death. They have shown decadence. Their blood guilt will be on them. Also a man who lies with a male as bedding with a woman, they do an abhorrence. The two of them shall be put to death, yea, death. Their blood guilt will be on them. As for a man who takes a woman and her mother, this is lewdness. In fire shall they burn him and them, so that no such lewdness may come up in your midst. Also a man who gives his emission to a beast, he shall be put to death, yea, death, and the beast shall you kill. As for a woman who approaches to any beast to copulate with it, you will kill the woman and the beast. They shall be put to death, yea, death. Their blood guilt will be on them. As for a man who takes his sister, a daughter of his father or a daughter of his mother, and sees her nakedness, and she sees his nakedness, this is a base thing, and they will be cut off before the eyes of the sons of their people. The nakedness of his sister has he exposed. His depravity shall he bear. Also a man who lies with a menstruous woman and exposes her nakedness, he causes her fountain to be naked, and she exposes the fountain of her blood flows. Then the two of them will be cut off from among their people. The nakedness of your mother's sister or your father's sister you shall not expose, for he who does so causes his kin to be naked. Their depravity shall they bear. As for a man who lies with his aunt, the nakedness of his uncle he has exposed. Their sin shall they bear, heirless shall they die. As for a man who takes the wife of his brother, this is impurity. The nakedness of his brother has he exposed, heirless shall they become. You will observe all my statutes and all my ordinances, and keep them so that the land, where I am bringing you to dwell in it, shall not vomit you out. You shall not walk by the habitual statutes of the nations which I am casting out from your presence, for they have practiced all these things, and I am irritated with them. Yet I said to you, you shall tenant their ground, and I myself shall give it to you to tenant it, a land gushing with milk and honey. I, Yahweh, am your Elohim, who separates you from the peoples. Hence you will make a separation between the clean beast and the unclean, and between the unclean flyer and the clean. And you shall not make your souls abominable by a beast or by a flyer or by anything that moves on the ground, which I have separated for you to consider it unclean. So you will become holy to me, for I, Yahweh, am holy, and I am separating you from the peoples to become mine. A man or a woman, in case there is a medium or a wizard among them, they shall be put to death, yea, death. With stones shall they pelt them. Their blood guilt is on them. Chapter 21. Yahweh said to Moses, speak to the priests, the sons of Aaron, and you will say to them, no one shall defile himself for a dead soul among his kinsmen, save for his kin next to him, that is, for his mother, for his father, for his son, for his daughter, for his brother or for his virgin sister, next to him, since she has not come to have a husband. For her he may defile himself. He shall not defile himself as a possessor among his kinsmen, and so profane himself. They shall not make bald a tonsure on their heads for a dead one, and not shave off the edge of their beard. Nor shall they lacerate their flesh with laceration. Holy shall they become to their Elohim. They shall not profane the name of their Elohim. Because they are bringing near the fire offerings of Yahweh, the bread of their Elohim, they are to be holy. A prostituting woman or a violated one they shall not take, and a woman driven out from her husband they shall not take, for he is holy to his Elohim. You will regard him as holy, for he is bringing near the bread of your Elohim. He shall become holy to you, for I am holy, Yahweh who is hallowing you. In case the daughter of a priestly man should profane herself by prostitution, she is profaning her father. With fire shall she be burned. As for the priest, the one greater than his brothers, on whose head the anointing oil was poured, and one consecrated him to put on the garments. His head's hair he shall not dishevel, and his garments he shall not rip, nor to any dead soul shall he enter. Even for his father or for his mother he shall not defile himself. He shall not go forth from the sanctuary, nor profane the sanctuary of his Elohim, for the sequestration by the anointing oil of his Elohim is on him. I am Yahweh. He shall take a wife in her virginity, a widow or one driven out or violated or prostituting. These he shall not take, but rather a virgin from his kinsmen shall he take for a wife, that he may not profane his seed among his kinsmen. For I, Yahweh, am regarding him as holy. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, speak to Aaron, saying, a man of your seed throughout their generations, in whom there is a blemish, he shall not approach to bring near the bread of his Elohim. For no man at all who has a blemish in him may approach. A blind man, or one lame, or disfigured, or deformed, or a man in whom there is a crippled foot, or a crippled hand, or who is hunchbacked, or dwarfed, or ulcerated in his eye, or with eczema, or tetter, or a mashed testicle. Any man of the seed of Aaron the priest, in whom there is a blemish, shall not come close to bring near the fire offerings of Yahweh. Since a blemish is in him, he shall not come close to bring near the bread of his Elohim. He may eat the bread of his Elohim, of the holies of holies and of the holy things. Only he shall not come to the curtain, nor shall he come close to the altar, for there is a blemish in him. He shall not profane my grand sanctuary, for I am Yahweh who is hallowing them. Then Moses spoke this to Aaron and to his sons and to all the sons of Israel. Chapter 22. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and to his sons, that they should sequester themselves from the holy things of the sons of Israel, which they are sanctifying to me, so that they may not profane my holy name. I am Yahweh. Say to them, Throughout your generations, every man of all your seed who is coming near to the holy things which the sons of Israel are sanctifying to Yahweh, when his uncleanness is on him, that soul will be cut off from my presence. I am Yahweh. Any man of the seed of Aaron, when he is a leprous man or has a discharge, he may not eat of the holy things until he be clean. As for the one touching any unclean soul, or a man from whom an emission of semen comes forth, or a man who touches any swarmer which is unclean to him, or a human who is unclean to him because of any uncleanness on him, the soul who touches it also will be unclean until the evening, and may not eat of the holy things unless he bathes his flesh in water. When the sun sets he will be clean, and afterward he may eat of the holy things, for it is his bread. A carcass or animal torn to pieces he shall not eat, so as to defile himself by it. I am Yahweh. Hence they will keep my charge, so that they shall not bear sin on its account and die by it, in case they should violate it. I am Yahweh who is hallowing them. Nor shall any alien eat the holy thing. That is, a priest's guest or hireling shall not eat the holy thing. Yet when a priest buys a soul, an acquisition with his silver, he may eat of it. Also his homeborn, they may eat of his bread. In case a daughter of a priest comes to have an alien husband, she may not eat of the heave offering of the holy things. Yet in case the daughter of the priest becomes a widow or is driven out, and she has no seed, and so she returns to the house of her father, as in her youth, of her father's bread she may eat. Yet no alien at all may eat of it. And in case someone eats a holy thing inadvertently, then he shall add a fifth of its value to it, and he will restitute the holy thing to the priest. They shall not profane the holy things of the sons of Israel, which they are raising up to Yahweh, and cause them to bear the depravity of guilt when they eat their holy things. For I am Yahweh who is hallowing them. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and to his sons and to all the sons of Israel, and you will say to them, When any man of the house of Israel or of the sojourner sojourning in Israel brings near his approach present for all their vows and for all their voluntary offerings, which they may bring near to Yahweh for an assent offering for acceptance on your behalf, it shall be a flawless male of the herd, of the sheep, or of the goats. Any in which there is a blemish you shall not bring near, for it shall not be for acceptance on your behalf. When a man brings near a sacrifice of peace offerings to Yahweh to make an extraordinary vow, or as a voluntary offering of the herd or of the flock, flawless shall it be for acceptance. No blemish at all shall be in it. Blind or crippled or gashed or with an ulcer or eczema or tetter, you shall not bring these near to Yahweh, nor as a fire offering shall you offer of them on the altar to Yahweh. As for a bull or a flockling, deformed or stunted, you may offer it as a voluntary offering, yet for a vow it shall not be accepted. And one with testicles squashed or pounded to pieces or pulled away or cut out you shall not bring near to Yahweh. You shall not do this in your land, nor shall you bring near as the bread of your Elohim of any of these animals acquired from the hand of a foreigner's son. Since their ruin is in them and a blemish is in them, they shall not be accepted on your behalf. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, When a bull or a sheep or a goat is born, then it will come to be 7 days under its mother. From the 8th day and beyond, it may be accepted as an approach present of a fire offering to Yahweh. As for the kine or the flockling, it and its young ewe shall not slay in 1 day. And in case you should sacrifice an acclamation sacrifice to Yahweh, for acceptance on your behalf shall you sacrifice it. On the same day shall it be eaten. You shall not leave any of it until the morning. I am Yahweh. Hence you will observe my instructions and keep them. I am Yahweh. You shall not profane my holy name, so that I be hallowed in the midst of the sons of Israel. I am Yahweh who is hallowing you, who brought you forth from the land of Egypt to be your Elohim. I am Yahweh. Chapter 23. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, and you will say to them, The appointed seasons of Yahweh, those which you shall proclaim holy meetings. My appointed seasons, they are these. 6 days shall work be done, yet on the 7th day there shall be a Sabbath of cessation, a holy meeting. You shall do no work at all. This is a Sabbath to Yahweh in all your dwellings. These are the appointed seasons of Yahweh, the holy meetings, those which you shall proclaim at their appointed time. In the 1st month, on the 14th day of the month between the evening hours, is the Passover to Yahweh. And on the 15th day of this month is the festival of unleavened bread to Yahweh. 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread. On the 1st day you shall come to have a holy meeting, when you shall do no occupational work at all. And you will bring near a fire offering to Yahweh 7 days. On the 7th day is a holy meeting, when you shall do no occupational work at all. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, and you will say to them, When you come into the land which I am giving to you and reap its harvest, you will bring a sheaf of the first fruit of your harvest to the priest. He will wave the sheaf before Yahweh for acceptance on your behalf. From the morrow of the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. On the day when you cause the sheaf to wave, you will offer a flawless year-old he-lamb as an ascent offering to Yahweh, together with its approach present of 2/10 of an ephah of flour mingled with oil, a fire offering to Yahweh, a fragrant odor, and its libation of wine, 1/4 of a hin. No bread or toasted grain or groats of the new crop shall you eat until this very day, until you bring the approach present of your Elohim. It shall be an Aeonian statute throughout your generations in all your dwellings. You will count off for yourselves from the morrow of the Sabbath, from the day you bring the sheaf of the wave offering. There shall be 7 flawless Sabbaths. Until the morrow of the 7th Sabbath you shall count off 50 days. Then you will bring near an approach present of new grain to Yahweh. From your dwellings shall you bring bread as a wave offering. 2 loaves of 2/10 of an ephah of flour shall they be. Baked with leaven shall they be, as first fruits for Yahweh. And you will bring near with the bread 7 flawless year-old he-lambs, and 1 bull calf of the herd, and 2 flawless rams. They shall be an ascent offering to Yahweh together with their approach present and their libations, a fire offering, a fragrant odor to Yahweh. And you will offer 1 hairy goat as a sin offering, and 2-year-old he-lambs as a sacrifice of peace offerings. Then the priest will wave them with the bread of the firstfruits as a wave offering before Yahweh with the 2 he-lambs. Holy shall they be to Yahweh for the priest, and you will proclaim a meeting on this very day. It shall be holy for you. You shall do no occupational work at all. It shall be an Aeonian statute in all your dwellings throughout your generations. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not finish the edges of your field when you reap. In the gleaning of your harvest you shall not glean. For the humble one and for the sojourner shall you forsake them. I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, on day 1 of the month, there shall be a cessation for you with a memorial trumpet blast, a holy meeting. You shall do no occupational work at all, and you will bring near a fire offering to Yahweh. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Then on the 10th of this 7th month, it is the day of propitiatory shelters. It shall be a holy meeting for you, and you will humble your souls and bring near a fire offering to Yahweh. You shall do no work at all on this very day, for it is the day of propitiatory shelters, so as to make a propitiatory shelter over you before Yahweh your Elohim. For every soul who is not humbled on this very day will be cut off from his kinsmen. And every soul who does any work on this very day, I will destroy that soul from among his people. You shall do no work at all. It is an Aeonian statute throughout your generations in all your dwellings. It is a Sabbath of cessation for you, and you will humble your souls. On the 9th day of the month in the evening, from evening until evening, shall you cease for your Sabbath. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, saying, From the 15th day of this 7th month is the festival of booths, 7 days to Yahweh. On the 1st day is a holy meeting. You shall do no occupational work at all. 7 days shall you bring near a fire offering to Yahweh, and on the 8th day there shall be a holy meeting for you, and you will bring near a fire offering to Yahweh. It is a day of restraint. You shall do no occupational work at all. These are the appointed seasons of Yahweh, those which you shall proclaim as holy meetings, to bring near the fire offering to Yahweh, the ascent offering and the approach present, the sacrifice and the libations, each day's matter in its day, aside from the Sabbaths of Yahweh, and aside from your gifts, and aside from all your vows, and aside from all your voluntary offerings which you shall give to Yahweh. On the 15th day of the 7th month after you have gathered the yield of the land, you shall celebrate the festival of Yahweh for 7 days. On the first day there is a cessation, and on the 8th day a cessation. You will take for yourselves on the first day fruit of goodly trees, fronds of palm trees, and boughs of leafy trees, and oleanders of the watercourse. And you will rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim for 7 days. You will celebrate it as a festival to Yahweh for 7 days in the year. It shall be an Aeonian statute throughout your generations. In the 7th month shall you celebrate it. In booths shall you dwell 7 days, that is, every native in Israel. They shall dwell in booths, that your generations may know that in booths I made the sons of Israel dwell, when I brought them forth from the land of Egypt. I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. Thus Moses spoke of the appointed seasons of Yahweh to the sons of Israel. Chapter 24. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Instruct the sons of Israel that they should take to you clear olive oil, pounded, for the luminary, to kindle the lamp regularly. Outside the curtain of the testimony in the tent of appointment, Aaron and his sons shall arrange it from evening until morning before Yahweh regularly. It shall be an Aeonian statute throughout your generations. On the pure lampstand shall he arrange the lamps before Yahweh regularly. You will take flour and bake of it 12 perforated cakes. 2/10 of an ephah shall there be for one perforated cake. And you will place them in 2 arrays, 6 to the array, on the pure table before Yahweh. You will put along each array clear frankincense, and it will be used instead of the bread as a memorial portion, a fire offering to Yahweh. Sabbath day by Sabbath day shall he arrange it before Yahweh regularly on behalf of the sons of Israel, an Aeonian covenant. It will be for Aaron and for his sons, and they will eat it in a holy place, for it is a holy of holies for him from the fire offerings of Yahweh. It is an Aeonian statute. A son of an Israelite woman, he was the son of an Egyptian man, had come forth in the midst of the sons of Israel. Now this son of the Israelites and an Israelite man strove together in the camp, and the son of the Israelite woman blasphemed the name of Yahweh, and he maledicted. So they brought him to Moses. Now the name of his mother was Shelomith, daughter of Dibri of the stock of Dan. They left him under guard until Moses expounded the case for them at the bidding of Yahweh. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Bring forth the maledictor outside the camp, and all the hearers will support their hands on his head, and the whole congregation will pelt him with stones. And to the sons of Israel shall you speak, saying, In case any man maledicts his Elohim, then he will bear his own sin. The blasphemer of the name of Yahweh, he shall be put to death, yea, death. The whole congregation shall pelt him with stones, the sojourner as well as the native. When he blasphemes the name, he shall be put to death. In case a man smites any human soul so that he dies, he shall be put to death, yea, death. And the smiter of the soul of a beast shall repay its soul for soul. In case a man gives a blemish to his companion, just as he did so shall it be done to him. Broken limb for broken limb, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Just as he gives a blemish to a human, so shall it be given to him. The smiter of a beast he shall repay for it, but the smiter of a human shall be put to death. The same judgment shall you come to have. For the sojourner as well as the native shall it be. For I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. Thus Moses spoke to the sons of Israel, and they brought forth the maledictor outside the camp and pelted him with stones. So the sons of Israel did just as Yahweh had instructed Moses. Chapter 25. Yahweh spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, and you will say to them, When you come into the land that I am giving to you, the land will pause for a Sabbath to Yahweh. 6 years shall you sow your field, and 6 years shall you prune your vineyard, and you will gather its yield. Yet in the 7th year there shall be a Sabbath of cessation for the land, a Sabbath to Yahweh. Your field you shall not sow, and your vineyard you shall not prune. The self-sown of your harvest you shall not reap, and the grapes of your untrimmed vines you shall not pick. A year of cessation shall it be for the land. Yet the Sabbath yield of the land you will come to have as food for you, for your servant, and for your maidservant. for your hireling and for your guest, those sojourning with you, for your domestic beast and for the wild animal which are in your land. All its yield shall be for eating. You will count off for yourselves 7 Sabbaths of years, that is 7 years 7 times, so that the days of the 7 Sabbaths of years will come to be for you 49 years. Then you will make the trumpet blast pass over all your land in the 7th month on the 10th of the month. On the day of propitiatory shelters, you shall make the trumpet pass over all your land. And you will hallow the year, the 50th year, and proclaim liberty in the land to all its dwellers. A jubilee year shall this one be for you. Each of you will return to his holding, and each of you shall return to his family. A jubilee year shall this one, the 50th year, be for you. You shall not sow, nor shall you reap its self-sown, neither shall you pick its untrimmed vines, for this is the jubilee. Holy shall it be for you. Directly from the field you shall eat its yield. In this year of the jubilee, each of you shall return to his holding. So in case you should sell land use in a sale to your companion, or buy it from the hand of your companion, you must not tyrannize a man over his brother. By the number of years after the jubilee shall you buy land use from your companion. By the number of the years of yield shall he sell it to you. Corresponding to the multitude of years shall you increase its buying price, and corresponding to the fewness of years shall you decrease its buying price, because it is the number of yields he is selling to you. So you should not tyrannize a man over his companion. You will fear your Elohim, for I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. You will observe my statutes and my ordinances. You shall guard yourselves and keep them. Then you will dwell on the land in serenity. The land will give its fruit, and you will eat to satisfaction and dwell in serenity on it. Since you might say, what shall we eat in the 7th year? Behold, we may not sow nor gather our yield. I will enjoin my blessing for you in the 6th year, and it will give the yield for 3 years. While you sow in the 8th year, you will eat from the yield in storage until the 9th year. Until its yield comes in, you shall eat from the storage. The land use, it shall not be sold in perpetuity, for the land is mine, since you are sojourners and guests with me. So with all your holding of land, a redemption shall you give for the land. In case your brother is reduced to poverty and sells use of some of his holding, then his kinsman redeemer, one near to him, will come and redeem his brother's sold land use. And in case a man comes to have no kinsman redeemer, yet his own hand can afford it, so that he finds sufficient means for its redemption, then he will compute the years of its sale and restore the superfluity to the man to whom he sold it. Then he will return to his holding. Yet if he does not find his means sufficient to restore it to him, then his sold land use will come into the hand of the one buying it until the year of the Jubilee. Then it will come forth in the Jubilee, and he will return to his holding. In case a man sells a dwelling house in a walled city, then his right of redemption will continue until a year after its sale comes to end. Only for the days of a year shall his right of redemption continue. Yet if it should not be redeemed before its full year has come to end, then the house which is in a city that has a wall will belong in perpetuity to the one buying it throughout his generations. It shall not come forth in the Jubilee. Yet the houses of the hamlets, which have no wall round about, shall be reckoned along with the fields of the land. Redemption shall come for it, and in the Jubilee it shall come forth. Yet for the cities of the Levites, the houses of the cities of their holdings, redemption shall be Aeonian for Levites. When one from the Levites redeems, then the sold house, his city holding, will come forth in the Jubilee for the houses of the Levitical cities. These are their holdings in the midst of the sons of Israel. Yet the use of the common field of their cities may not be sold, for it is an Aeonian holding for them. In case your brother is reduced to poverty, and his hand slips beside you, then you will make him steadfast as if he were sojourner or guest, so that your brother may live beside you. Do not take advance interest or accrued interest from him. You will fear your Elohim, so that your brother be alive beside you. Your silver you shall not give to him on advance interest, nor give your food on accrued interest. I, Yahweh, am your Elohim, who brought you forth from the land of Egypt to give to you the land of Canaan, so as to be your Elohim. In case your brother who is beside you is reduced to poverty and sells himself to you, you shall not make him serve the service of a slave. As a hireling, as a guest shall he be beside you. Until the year of the Jubilee shall he serve for you. Then he will go forth from you. he and his sons with him, and return to his family, and to the holding of his fathers shall he return. For they are my servants, whom I brought forth from the land of Egypt. They shall not sell themselves as in servant sales. You shall not hold sway over him with rigor. You will fear your Elohim. As for your manservants and your maidservants, who become yours from the nations which are round about you, from them you may buy manservants or maidservants. Also from the sons of guests sojourning among you. From them you may buy, and from their families who are among you, whom they begot in your land. They will belong to your holding. You may entail them as an allotment to your sons after you together with the tenancy of the holding. For the eon you may make them serve. Yet over your brothers, the sons of Israel, a man over his brother, you shall not hold sway over them with rigor. In case the hand of a sojourner or guest beside you can afford it, and your brother beside him is reduced to poverty, and sells himself to the sojourner or guest beside you or to the clansman of the sojourner's family, after he has sold himself, redemption may he come to have. One of his brothers may redeem him, either his uncle or his uncle's son, he may redeem him, or one, kin to his flesh, of his family, he may redeem him. Or if his own hand can afford it, then he may redeem himself. He will compute with his buyer the total from the year he sold himself to him until the year of the Jubilee, and the silver for his release sale will be with regard to the number of years, as though he were for the days of a hireling under him. Should there still be many years corresponding to them, he shall refund for his redemption out of the silver of his buying price. And if few years remain until the year of Jubilee, then he will compute the amount due to him corresponding to his remaining years, and he shall refund it for his redemption. As a hireling, year by year shall he be with him. He shall not hold sway over him with rigor before your eyes. If he is not being redeemed in any of these ways, then he will go forth in the year of the Jubilee, he and his sons with him. For to me the sons of Israel are servants. They are my servants whom I brought forth from the land of Egypt. I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. Chapter 26. You shall not make forbidden idols for yourselves, nor set up carvings and monuments for yourselves, nor put a stone picture in your land to bow yourself down before it, for I, Yahweh, am your Elohim. My Sabbaths shall you observe, and my sanctuary shall you devoutly fear. I am Yahweh. If you walk by my statutes and observe my instructions and keep them, then I will give your downpours in their season, and the land will give its crop, and the tree of the field it shall give its fruit. Your threshing will overtake the vintage, and the vintage it shall overtake the sowing. You will eat your bread to satisfaction and dwell in serenity in your land. I will give peace in the land, and you will lie down with no one making you tremble. I will eradicate the wild animal from the land, and no sword shall pass through your land. You will pursue your enemies, and they will fall before you by the sword. 5 of you will pursue 100, and 100 of you shall pursue 1,000,000, and your enemies will fall before you by the sword. I will countenance you, make you fruitful, increase you, and confirm my covenant with you. You will eat stored stores and bring forth the stores in view of the new. I will put my tabernacle in your midst, and my soul shall not loathe you. I will walk about in your midst and will be your Elohim, and you shall be my people. I, Yahweh, am your Elohim, who brought you forth from the land of Egypt, from being servants to them. I have broken the slider bars of your yoke and enabled you to walk upraised. Yet if you neither hearken to me, nor observe all these instructions, and if you reject my statutes, and if your soul loathes my ordinances, so as not to observe all my instructions, to cause you to annul my covenant, indeed I myself shall do this to you. I will visit panic upon you, attenuation and fever, making the eyesight vanish and causing the soul to pine, and you will sow your seed for naught, for your enemies will eat it. I will set my face against you, and you will be struck down before your enemies. Those hating you will hold sway over you, and you will flee even when there is no one pursuing you. And if, after these things, you should not hearken to me, then I will continue to discipline you 7-fold for your sins. I will break the pomp of your strength and make your heavens like iron and your land like bronze. Your vigor will be spent for naught, and your land shall not give its crop, and the tree of the field it shall not give its fruit. If you go contrary to me and are not willing to hearken to me, then I will add smitings to you 7-fold according to your sins. I will send the animal of the field against you, and it will bereave you, cut off your domestic beasts, and so decrease you that your roads will be desolated. If by these you should not be disciplined for me, and you go contrary to me, then I will indeed go contrary to you, and I myself will even smite you sevenfold for your sins. I will bring the sword on you, avenging the vengeance of the covenant. When you will be gathered into your cities, then I will send the plague into your midst, and you will be given into the hand of the enemy. When I break the staff of bread for you, then 10 women will bake your bread in one stove, and return your bread by weight, so that you will eat and not be satisfied. If by this you should not hearken to me, and you go contrary to me, then I will go contrary to you in fury, and I myself indeed will discipline you sevenfold for your sins. You will eat the flesh of your sons, and the flesh of your daughters shall you eat. I will exterminate your high places, cut down your incense stands, and lay your corpses upon the corpses of your idol clods. Thus my soul will loathe you. I will turn your cities into a desert and make your grand sanctuary desolate. I shall not smell your fragrant odor. I myself will make the land so desolate that your enemies, the ones dwelling in it, will be appalled over it. And you I shall winnow among the nations, and I will unsheathe a sword after you, so that your land will become a desolation, and your cities become a desert. Then the land shall accept its Sabbaths all the days of its desolation when you are in the land of your enemies. Then the land shall keep its Sabbath and cause its missing Sabbaths to be accepted. All the days of its desolation it shall keep a Sabbath, which it did not keep as a Sabbath in your Sabbath years when you dwelt on it. As for the remainder among you, I will also bring timidity into their heart in the lands of their enemies, so that the sound of a leaf being whisked away will pursue them, and they will flee as if in flight from the sword. They will fall even when there is no one pursuing. They will stumble, a man over his brother, as though in view of the sword when there is no pursuer, and you shall not come to have a stand before your enemies. You will perish among the nations, and the land of your enemies will devour you. The remainder among you shall be putrefied because of their depravity in the lands of your enemies, and also because of the depravities of their fathers, added to them shall they be putrefied. Yet if they will confess their depravity and the depravity of their fathers in their offense, when they had offended me, and indeed, when they had gone contrary to me, so that I myself also went contrary to them, and I brought them into the land of their enemies, if then their uncircumcised heart should submit, and if then they should accept their depravity, then I will remember my covenant with Jacob, and also my covenant with Isaac. Also my covenant with Abraham shall I remember, and the land shall I remember. Yet the land, it shall be forsaken by them, and shall accept its Sabbath years while it is desolate without them. And they themselves shall accept their depravity, because they had rejected my ordinances, and their soul had loathed my statutes. Yet in spite of this, when they are in the land of their enemies, I will not reject them nor loathe them, so as to finish them, to annul my covenant with them. For I, Yahweh, am their Elohim. For their benefit I will remember the covenant with the former ones whom I brought forth from the land of Egypt before the eyes of the nations, to be their Elohim. I am Yahweh. These are the statutes, the ordinances, and the laws which Yahweh put between him and the sons of Israel on Mount Sinai by means of Moses. Chapter 27. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, and you will say to them, In case anyone makes an extraordinary vow to Yahweh, involving your appraisal of human souls, then your appraisal will be for the male from 20 years old unto 60 years old. Your appraisal will be 50 shekels of silver by the shekel of the holy place. And if she is a female, then your appraisal will be 30 shekels. If the person is from 5 years old unto 20 years old, then your appraisal will be for the male 20 shekels, and for the female 10 shekels. If the person is from a month old unto 5 years old, then your appraisal will be for the male 5 shekels of silver, and for the female your appraisal will be 3 shekels of silver. If the person is from 60 years old and upward, if a male, then your appraisal will be 15 shekels, and for a female 10 shekels. Yet if he is too reduced by poverty for your appraisal, then one will stand him before the priest, and the priest will appraise him. Corresponding to what the vower's means can afford, shall the priest appraise him. If the vow involves a domestic beast from which they bring near and approach present to Yahweh, All of what one gives to Yahweh, it shall be holy. He shall not exchange it, nor substitute for it, a good for a bad one, or a bad for a good one. And if he should substitute, yea, substitute beast for beast, then it has become holy. Both it and its substitute shall be holy. If the vow involves any unclean beast of which they may not bring near an approach present to Yahweh, then he will stand the beast before the priest, and the priest will appraise it whether good or bad. According to your appraisal, O priest, so shall it be. If he should redeem, yea, redeem it, then he will add a fifth of its value over your appraisal. In case a man sanctifies his house to be holy to Yahweh, then the priest will appraise it whether good or bad. Just as the priest appraises it, so much shall it cost. And if the one sanctifying he should redeem his house, then he will add a fifth of the silver of your appraisal to it, and it will become his. If a man should sanctify part of a field of his holding to Yahweh, then your appraisal will be corresponding to its seed, a homer of barley seed to 50 shekels of silver. If he should sanctify his field from the year of the Jubilee, according to your appraisal shall it cost. Yet if he should sanctify his field after the Jubilee, then the priest will compute the silver for him, corresponding to the rest of the years, until the year of the Jubilee, so a portion will be subtracted from your first appraisal. And if the one sanctifying it should redeem, yea, redeem the field, then he will add a fifth of the silver of your appraisal to it, and it will belong to him. But if he should not redeem the field, or if he has sold the field to another man, it shall not be redeemed again. And the field, when it comes forth in the Jubilee, will become holy to Yahweh as a devoted field. It shall become the priest's holding. Yet if it is a field of his acquisition, which is not a field of his holding which he sanctifies to Yahweh, then the priest will compute for him the assessment of your appraisal until the year of the Jubilee. And he will pay your appraisal on that day as holy to Yahweh. In the year of the Jubilee, the field shall return to the one from whom he acquired it, to him whose holding the land is. All of your appraisals shall be by the shekel of the holy place. 20 gerahs shall there be to a shekel. However, the firstborn among beasts which is firstborn is devoted to Yahweh, no one may sanctify it. Whether a bull or a flockling, it is already Yahweh's. Yet if it is among the unclean beasts, then he will ransom it by your appraisal and add to it a fifth of its value. Should it not be redeemed, then it will be sold by your appraisal. Every devoted thing which a man may devote to Yahweh, of all which is his of human and beast and of the field of his holding, it shall not be sold nor redeemed. Every devoted thing, it will be a holy of holies to Yahweh. Every doomed one which is doomed of humanity, he shall not be ransomed. He shall be put to death, yea, death. As for all the tithe of the land, of the seed of the land, and of the fruit of the tree, it is Yahweh's. It is holy to Yahweh. And if a man should redeem, yea, redeem any part of his tithe, a fifth of it shall he add to it. All the tithe of the herd and the flock, all that passes under the club, a tenth shall become holy to Yahweh. He shall make no quest between good and bad, nor substitute for it. And if he should substitute, yea, substitute for it, then it has become holy. Both it and its substitute shall be holy. It may not be redeemed. These are the instructions with which Yahweh instructed Moses for the sons of Israel on Mount Sinai.